This is everything you need to know about going out and sleeping in a hammock for the very first time. You're gonna love it. You really don't need very much. There's really 4 key components, and those are your hammock, your straps, your tarp, and your stakes. After that, you have insulation underneath and a top quilt for insulation on top, and that is all you need. When you are picking a place to set up your hammock, there's a few things you need to keep in mind. The first one is absolutely looking for what's called widowmakers, and that's either dead branches or dead trees that are standing or that are still in the trees that have a high risk of coming down on top of you. So if there's wind or rain, or if there's, God forbid, snow tonight, they're branches and pieces of wood that are around that can fall on you while you're sleeping, and that's never a good idea. So make sure to check above you every time to make sure nothing's in the way. The next thing that's really important is to pick trees that are far enough apart. Not too far apart, but far enough apart. For me, what I tend to do is I'll take 5 steps. If I can find trees that are 5 steps apart, that's perfect. I can go a little more or a little less, but I need to make sure I can fit my hammock between those 2 trees with the straps at the right angles. We're gonna start with the tree straps. These are pretty simple, but if you've never seen them before, you might not get it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap this strap around the tree with one end, and they have these webbing loops sewn into them. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open up one of those webbing loops, and as we wrap it around the tree, we're gonna feed this through, and this is going to secure itself on the tree. The second tree strap is going to go on the far tree, but I'm going to make that my head end. And what I like to do is I like to put my head end about 6 inches lower than my foot end so that I slide forward in the hammock and I just lie in a better spot. Because these trees were exactly 5 paces apart, I try to keep the first one at the top of my head, and then I just assume the next one's going to be at about my nose. I assume that's 6 inches. I don't really know, but it helps me figure it out. Now I'm ready to put in my hammock. Now this hammock is different than some hammocks. They are all a little bit unique, but this has 2 carabiners, one on each side, and a stuff sack that opens on both ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip one end to one of the daisy chain loops, and on the other end I'm going to clip it to the other end, and I'm going to hopefully get it set up just at about, I don't know, 18 to 24 inches off the ground when I try to sit in it. Now I always get that wrong, and I get it too close to one end or the other, so I'm going to adjust it so it's close to the middle. And then I'm going to adjust it so it's as high as I want. All of those adjustments really only serve to do 2 things. They set the hammock at the height I want to get in and out of it, and they set the straps at about a 30-degree angle. Once your hammock is set up, it's time to get in it and test it. Make sure that everything moves the right way, everything's sitting the right way, and to check the tension on the ridge line. You want to be able to give it some play, not have it extremely taut, and just to make sure that it's got the right amount of sag in it. Now, when you are lying in a hammock, a gathered end hammock, if you lie straight, you will lie kind of like a banana. Your feet will go up at the end and your head will go up at the end and your butt will sink in the middle. But if you take your feet and you slide them over to the side, you take your head and you slide it over to the side, you will be able to lie down almost entirely flat. It's really important in a hammock to have something underneath you, because the wind and the air that moves underneath you will suck heat out from under you. So I'm going to put on my down underquilt, and I'm going to throw my top quilt in there as well. This underquilt has a foot end and a head end. Some do, some don't. This one does. So I'm going to put the foot end onto the foot end, and I'm going to put the head end on the head end. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this little S-beaner onto the suspension. That quilt is then going to go underneath and around the hammock. And since it's on with bungee cords, it's going to come up snug against the hammock, and the insulation on the outside is going to provide me that warmth. You'll also notice that this underquilt has baffles, basically on the end where it goes around the hammock. That's to prevent drafts from coming in and out inside that little kind of environment of warmth that I'm going to create. So I want to cinch those up, and I also want to make sure that that underquilt is tight to the bottom of the hammock, so there's an adjustment I can make this way and this way to make sure that it's secure around that hammock. Now that I know I've locked the hot air underneath me, I'm going to lock the hot air over top of me with my top quilt. Depending on the hammock that you get, it will have attachment points along the hammock. Mine has a bunch of them so that you can do different things. I'm just going to use one little S-clip to clip the head end by my head, my hammock to my quilt, and the foot end by my foot, my hammock to my quilt, so that those things stay in place while I'm sleeping and I don't end up with the underquilt slipping out from underneath me and letting all that cold air hit me on the butt. The last thing I have to do is put up my tarp. Now this tarp comes with a pretty ingenious way to secure it to the tree. What you do is you take this, you wrap it around the tree, and you clip it into its own line, and then there's a tensioner on the actual tarp. Now once I'm all set up, I will do all the nerdy things like put my straps up so that I don't trip over them, and put in some knots on the guy lines on the ridge line so that it doesn't come out and there's no tension lost overnight if we get a windstorm or something. And yeah, then I'm ready for the night.
That was a good sleep. I'm really glad I put that tarp up. Forecast said that it wasn't going to rain, but it rained for about 2 hours last night, so the tarp is soaked. But I'm nice and dry.
Your hammock might be a little bit different. It might have different kind of straps. It might have a different kind of suspension or attachment to the hammock. It might have a different kind of thing on the tarp. There's all sorts of variation within that. It could be different materials. It could be all sorts of options. But the fundamentals are the same. You still want to have the right amount of sag. You still want to have your straps connected to a tree and then to your hammock. And you still want to have insulation below you and above you. There's no real difference in the fundamentals, just in how you tweak it and what your personal preferences are after that.